Hey, fourth graders, it's Mrs. Spears. I'm doing lesson 2.3 with you. It's from page 75. It's on multiplying tens, hundreds, and thousands, which sounds like a lot, but it's a cool trick that I'll show you once I explain where the trick comes from. So they give us a problem. It says each car on a train has 200 seats. How many seats are on a train with 8 cars? So if we draw a picture of that, I'm going to pretend that each row here is one car of my train. And I'm going to put 100 people on one side and 100 people on the other side. So now I got 200 people on one car. But it says I have 8 cars. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cars. Just remember, breaking those into cars. So I've got 8 cars. And I'm going to put 100 people on each side of each car because it says there's 200 people in each car. I'm just splitting them in half so that the way the train doesn't fall over on one side. My third car. My fourth car. Fifth car. Sixth car. Seventh car. And 8th car. Whew. Well, now we can kind of group those up and based on counting by tens pretty much. So we can have, we're counting by hundreds, but we've got 10. We can make groups of 10 to figure out quickly how many we've got. So we can go 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, 1,000, which is 1,000. So this whole group right here of cars represents 1,000. That's what the T is for. So 10 hundreds is the same thing as 1,000. Then we still have all of these down here. So we have 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600. 600s is just 600. Okay, so we have 1,000 in the first group, 600 in the second group. All together is 1,600 people, and that's 8 cars worth of 200 people each. Another way we can think about this is by using place value. So instead of trying to figure out 8 times 200, I can just do 8 times 200s. Oh, that's kind of messy, sorry. 8 times 200s, which means 8 times 2 is 16. So now I have 1,600 still. 1,600s, 100 has 2 zeros in it, which means I got to put 1,600s back together. So 1,600s is 1,600, just like we got up here. 1,600s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 1,600s is the same thing as 1,600. So I got to put this back together. So instead of doing 8 times 2 to get 16, we have 1,600s, which means we have 1,600, which is basically just 16 with those 2 zeros stuck back on there. We started with 2 zeros, so we multiplied by just the basic fact, which was 8 times 2, and then we put the zeros back on when we were finished. So there are 1,600 seats on a train with 8 cars. This is a pretty nifty trick. We're actually going to use it quite a bit when we do multiplication. It's going to come in real handy we don't have to sit there and work out each problem if there's just a bunch of zeros on it. This one says to use a number line. Bob's Sled Shop rents 4,000 sleds each month. How many sleds does the store rent in 6 months? So we basically have to figure out 6 months times 4,000 sleds because they do 4,000 sleds in each of those 6 months. Multiplication can be thought of as repeated addition. We talked about this before. Draw jumps to show the product. So what they did was in the first line here, they just counted by 4. So they pretty much ignored the zeros and just did 6 times 4 by jumping 4 6 times. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. That's 6 jumps of 4, which gets me to 24. So I know that 6 times 4 is 24. Then they thought about it as, What if we just left 1 0 behind and then jumped by 40? So we would do 4 with a 0 basically. So that would be 40, 80, 120, 160, 200, 240. That's still 6 jumps of 40. 6 groups of 40 is 240. Okay, so we're getting a little closer here. This time they did it with 2 zeros on it, and they left it as 6 times 400 instead. So then we have 400, 800, 1200, 1600, 2000, 2400. So 6 times 400, which is basically 6 times 4 with 2 zeros, is still 24, but with 2 zeros. And then finally, they put all 3 zeros on here, and then they counted by 4,000s instead of just 4. So it'd be 4,000, 8,000, 12,000, 16,000, 20,000, 24,000. So 6 times 4,000, which was our original problem, is 24,000. Still just 6 times 4 with all those zeros tacked on to the end of it. So what they were just trying to show you is we don't have to do this every single time we want to multiply by something. They just did it so that you could see how counting with repeated addition can help you. And they did it with a smaller problem so you can see how they're connected, basically. But I'm going to show you a trick that helps you do this without having to write out all those number lines. Hopefully through all this you've noticed we figured out on this page over here that when we're doing a problem like this, if we have 8 times 200, all we did was the basic fact. We multiplied the 2 regular numbers together and took our zeros and stuck them back on the end. And that's really all you have to do when you're multiplying by tens or by hundreds, by tens, by hundreds, or by thousands, is you just need to multiply the basic fact together and then pop your zeros back on from your problem. That's how many you worked with. So for example, we've got 3 times 7. That's my basic fact because it's just 2 single-digit numbers multiplied together. 3 times 7 is 21. But if we did 3 times 70, it's still 21 with 1 0 at the end of it, just like the 70 has. If we did 3 times 700, we would still do the basic fact. So that's 3 times 7, which is still 21, with 2 zeros. And we're going to put the 2 zeros on the end of it. Same thing with this. 3 times 7,000. 3 times 7 is still 21, except we have 3 zeros after it. So we get 21,000. So whenever you're multiplying a single digit number by a multi-digit number that starts out with a regular number and has zeros on the end of it, you can use this trick. Like I said, it will come in handy a lot because sometimes we'll come across problems like this. We're going to learn how to actually multiply these out. So instead of sitting there multiplying each of the digits by 3, like we're going to learn how to do here soon, if you just do this trick where you multiply the basic fact first and then pop your zeros on the end, you can be done a lot faster because you're just multiplying basically by how many hundreds there are or how many thousands there are, and then you can just put the zeros back on the end of it. So with this one, we've got our basic fact is 8 times 5, and that's 40. So I have 8 times 50. I'm still going to do 8 times 5, which is still 40, but there was a 0 on there, so I got to put that 0 on the end as well. I have 8 times 500. I'm still going to do 8 times 5, which is still just 40. But then I have 2 zeros that have to be added to the end. Don't think that this 0 counts as one of your other zeros. These guys have to go on in addition to any of the zeros that go with your basic fact. So if I have 8 times 5,000, that's still 40 with 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3. So it says, how does the number of zeros in the product of 8 and 5,000 compare to the number of zeros in the factors? So in my factors, I've got 8 and, so these are factors, the 2 numbers we're multiplying with. 8 and 5,000 has 3 zeros because I have 3 in the 5,000 and none in the 8. When I multiply those together, zeros in the product, which is what we get when we finish multiplying. We do our basic fact. That is 40. And 1, 2, 3 zeros attached to the end. So this one has 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. And that's because the basic fact already had a 0 in it. And we had to still put the remaining zeros on it. That's why there's a difference in those. All right, we're going to do more of these tomorrow together. Just remember, all you have to do is multiply. When you have a big problem like this, multiply your basic fact together and then put the same number of zeros onto the end of your number. It'll save you a lot of time and it will help you as you learn more multiplication. I will see you tomorrow and we'll work through some more of these together. Bye!